Hey there, everyone. This is Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, everyone. Hello, YouTubers. I hope you guys are all having an amazing day. Happy Christmas Eve, you guys, to wherever you guys are. And hope you guys have some time off and you're spending it with your loved ones, you guys. And those of you who are in the midst of a winter storm, please stay warm and please stay safe, you guys. So let's get into it. Let's get into this Tory Lanez verdict, you guys. Because for some reason there's a firestorm on social media, you guys. There is a firestorm on social media and a lot of division to this verdict, you guys. So let's get into it. So as you guys know, so from TMZ, we have a guilty verdict, and not just guilty, you guys, but guilty on all three charges. So let's talk about it. So this is what the jury decided. This came in Friday, 2 days before Christmas. And, the LA jurors found this Canadian rapper, Tory Lanez, guilty of all three charges: felony negligent discharge of a firearm, assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and carry a loaded and unregistered firearm. After the verdict was read, several members of Tory's family, including his dad and stepmom, shouted, quote, "This system stands before God," and calling the court system evil. Deputies surrounded the family members and escorted them out of the courtroom. Tory was filmed entering the court before the verdict was read, telling cameras his spirits were high. Tory now faces more than 22 years in prison, which will be determined at sentencing on January 27th. Sources connected to the case tell us Tory's lawyers were in touch with immigration officials before the guilty verdict, and we were told they have been informed there's a strong likelihood he will be forced to leave the country. This marks the conclusion of a wild 2 weeks in court, which we saw a handful of witnesses take the stand to recount what they saw happen on that fateful night, you guys. And as you guys know, ultimately, and so here's the thing, because I know there's going to be a lot of strong reaction from you guys, right? I never doubted that Tory Lanez shot Megan Thee Stallion, you guys, right? Never doubted that. What I was concerned about, based off of the reporting by some of the people who were in that courtroom, who were in the front lines, that even whether they were Team Tory, Team Meg, or Team Nobody, you guys, basically put it out there or implied or said directly, emphatically, that they felt that the prosecution did not present their case. It was never for me whether or not Tory Lanez shot Meg. I think that was pretty clear, right? But I think what I felt, based off of what people were saying, how the prosecution presented their case, and, how the job that they did in comparison to the defense, it felt like, okay, are they really trying to help Meg? Was there sabotage? Is there room for, the jurors to possibly not convict Tory Lanez on all three charges? Is there possibilities for a hung jury or a mistrial based off of what people are saying about this prosecution team? So that was where that speculation was coming from, you guys. But that is not the same, you guys, as some of you who never believed Megan Thee Stallion, right? Some of you who never thought that Megan Thee Stallion was telling the truth. And yes, there were some lies and some things that were omitted that she did not tell the court, right? Like denying that her and Kelsey got into a fight, like omitting certain details, right? But ultimately, the fact of the matter was, once the jurors started asking questions during deliberation about the firearms expert, asking for clarification on the charges, and spending all of this extensive time reviewing Kelsey's testimony back from September and reviewing the eyewitnesses' testimony as well, it was never going to look good for Tory Lanez, you guys. It was never going to look good for Tory Lanez. All that told me was that there was enough people who believed Tory Lanez shot Meg, and they wanted to get this additional transcripts to convince whoever else on the jury was still on the fence, right? And so based off of whatever, they interpreted from those transcripts to convince the other jurors that might have been on the fence, that still might have, wanted to point Kelsey as the shooter, or say that, hey, well, maybe we still don't have enough that vehemently says that Tory did X, Y, and Z. That was enough to convince them, for all of them, because they all have to be on the same page, you guys, for a conviction, right? They all have to be on the same page, all 12 jurors, right? And they all convicted, even the people who were reluctant to do so, right? Because they keep referring in a lot of the reporting to juror number 8, who is a black man who had a long pause, had a long sigh, and, ultimately said guilty. But the problem that we have now is this, you guys. While Megan Thee Stallion got justice, the reaction and the division that has taken place, which has kind of manifested because before this case even went to trial, the court of public opinion had already divided everybody, you guys. The court of public opinion already divided people because people were either Team Tory or Team Meg before this even went to trial. And people kept pointing out inconsistencies in different interviews and what was in the police report, what wasn't in the police report, who said and did what, right? So this was never, regardless of what the outcome was going to be, this was never going to be, in fact, an opportunity for anybody really to celebrate or to really be happy. There's nobody who won in this, as far as I'm concerned, right? Yes, Megan Thee Stallion got justice, but there's still a lot of people who do not believe Megan Thee Stallion, even with this verdict, you guys. There's still a lot of people who have free Tory Lanez trending, who are, and also his family is leading the charge, you guys. There was a very, strong and emotional reaction to Tory Lanez's conviction from his father as well as his stepmother. And they're going as far as to blaming Jay-Z and Roc Nation and Desiree Perez, who's the CEO of Roc Nation, I believe, and calling her a Fed informant, you guys. And here's the thing. Why are you bringing Jay-Z and Desiree Perez and everything else in it? Yes, that is, who Megan Thee Stallion is affiliated with, right? Because she has, of course, the affiliation with Roc Nation, and then she also still has the case coming up with her former record label 1501. So then that case is still in existence, but ultimately, Desiree Perez, Jay-Z, Roc Nation was not on trial, you guys. They weren't the people who shot Meg Thee Stallion, right? So we need to stop placing blame, and we need to start holding ourselves accountable, you guys. We have to start holding ourselves accountable, right? And let's keep it a buck as to what actually started this, right? Let's keep it a buck as to why this happened. Why did this happen, right? And we have to keep it a buck, right? Regardless if you're Team Meg or Team Tory or Team Nobody, right? The catalyst of this was jealousy, right? The catalyst of this was jealousy. The catalyst of this was too much alcohol. Like Jamie Foxx said, blame it on the alcohol. Too much alcohol. And, first off, Meg Thee Stallion not feeling a certain type of way about Kylie and Tory Lanez getting along and flirting or whatever else, and then leaving the first time, and Tory not wanting to leave, and then her coming back, and everybody escalating because of all the alcohol that they've consumed, to the point Kylie Jenner kicks them out of their house, right? And then Tory's pissed, right? He's pissed because he's trying to make something happen with Kylie Jenner, right? So he's likely in the car, pissed off, drunk, like, listen, why are you mad at me getting on with Kylie Jenner when you're sleeping with your best friend's man behind her back? Which would mean Kelsey, right? So now Kelsey is discovering that while she was at home sick with COVID, her best friend who set her up with Tory Lanez is sleeping with this man behind her back. So now everybody's pissed, right? Tory's pissed at Megan for, stopping whatever moves he was trying to make on Kylie. Megan's mad at Tory for not leaving when she wanted him to, as well as flirting with Kylie. Now Kelsey's mad because she just discovered, once again, allegedly, that her friend is hooking up with somebody that she was hooking up with first, or that set her up with first, and now everything escalates. Now all hell breaks loose, and now we have a problem, right? Now we have a problem, and the sequence of events after this is where it gets murky, depending on who you believe, depending on what portions of the testimony you believe, because keep it a buck. Not everybody on that witness stand was credible. The only thing that was credible were the people who could point to Tory Lanez as the shooter, you guys. But with that being said, ultimately this escalates. Ultimately, this leads to violence, and ultimately this leads to Meg Thee Stallion getting shot, whether it was directly or inadvertently or ricocheted. Ultimately, bullets and bullet fragments are, still in her foot, you guys, because they weren't able to get everything out. So that is why we are here. That ultimately is why we are here, right? Now, whether you feel that the LAPD botched the investigation, whether you feel as though the prosecution had botched this, or they didn't produce enough evidence to say without a reasonable doubt, whatever the side of the coin you are, ultimately the fact is Tory Lanez shot Meg, right? And that's ultimately what is taking place. But due to the reaction and the strong reaction that people have to this, nobody in the end is winning, right? Tory Lanez's son and I believe his little sister unfortunately had to see him, get taken away in handcuffs. He's already listed is being booked at the jail, and there's no bail. He will not get sentenced until the end of January and is looking at 22 years, possibly in prison, as well as, like the TMZ report said, most likely deportation. Now, Tory's attorneys have already come out and said that they're going to appeal this and everything else. And, but like I said, there's no winners in this, right? Because there's people who still do not believe Meg Thee Stallion, right? There was people who were in this courtroom who were convinced that Tory Lanez was going to get off and push that narrative on their platforms, you guys. To the point several people believed it, right? And there were even people who were reporting fake tea before we officially got the verdict, saying that Tory Lanez got off 24 hours before we even had a verdict, you guys, saying that Tory Lanez was not guilty on 2 of the 3 charges, you guys, before anything happened. Just so that they could be first, just so they could have something viral, just so they could push the narrative that Tory Lanez was going to get off, right? So you have that situation. You have, like I said, the Megan situation, to where even though she got justice, there's still people who don't believe her. There's still people who do not like her. There's still people who do not want to mess with her, right? And like I said with Tory, unfortunately, his family and everybody else had to see him get it taken away in handcuffs. I think initially he brought his son in, to look sympathetic, look like he's a good father and everything else. But no child wants to see anybody that their loved ones, especially at the age of 5 years old, getting taken away in handcuffs. That's going to be traumatic for them for the rest of their lives, right? And the family spreading conspiracy theories as far as who they think is responsible, and that there's some double dealing going on and all of this and that. And then there's Kelsey, you guys. Then there's Kelsey, because regardless of whatever you think of her, right? She perjured herself on that stand. And so the question now is going to be whether or not she is going to be facing any criminal charges, right? Because she did not get full transactional immunity, you guys. But where we are now, you guys, is I don't feel this is over. I think the strong, visceral reaction that has taken place for all parties involved, regardless of who you are, team who or team against or team nobody, this is not going to go over anytime soon, right? We're still going to be talking about this case. Apparently there is a documentary that's being filmed as well for Megan Thee Stallion to, of course, include this case and include reaction from some of the bloggers and everybody else who were there. And shout out to everybody who was there. Shout out to all of the bloggers, all of the independent bloggers who were there. It was, amazing for them to do the reporting. Now, some obviously lean toward a certain side more than others, but there were plenty who were completely unbiased, right? There were some who were completely unbiased and gave fantastic reporting, right? And, really stuck to the facts of what was taking place in the case. And I think that was what also muddied some of the waters for some of the people who are reacting very strongly to this verdict, is that they believe certain platforms that Tory Lanez was going to get off. Even though they knew he shot Meg, they felt, based on how the case was being presented, that he was going to get off. So, in coupled with that, as well as people who do not like Meg Thee Stallion, now you have chaos. You have chaos that has now ensued. So it is going to be interesting from here. You know, ultimately, I want Megan Thee Stallion to get the proper healing and, you know, get the necessary, you know, coping mechanisms or whatever, therapy, whatever, to move forward so that she can proceed in her life, whichever which way, right? Because obviously this was a traumatic experience for her. And, you know, we will see what happens with Tory Lanez, if he's going to get this 22-year sentence, if he's going to be deported, what ultimately is going to happen, if he's going to win an appeal down the line. We don't know, right? So more to come on that. And then we will find out whether or not Kelsey gets a perjury charge, right? And then as we know, of course, Megan Thee Stallion still, of course, has that case against her former record label 1501 because they are saying, hey, you still owe us albums, right? So she still has to go back to court for that whole situation. So there is that. But please let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. Like I said, this is a very wild reaction, and I purposely waited to see a lot of what the reporting was going to be, a lot of the different reactions. And like I said, it's a consensus that Tory Lanez shot Meg. That was never the issue. That was never in question, right? But what was in question, based off of some of the reporting and some of what was being told in court, was there a possibility for reasonable doubt? Was there a possibility that the prosecution did not properly present this case in enough to say without a shadow of a doubt that, hey, this is Tory Lanez, he did this, right? Because then you mix that in with everybody who lied on the stand too, right? Or who told partial truths on the stand, which then opens the door for corruption or bribery or everything else, or people just having a bad memory, right? However you want to slice and dice it, right? So there is that, you guys. But please let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. What do you guys think of this case? What do you think of Tory Lanez, you know, being found guilty of all 3 charges? What do you think of the reaction to this? And some people still believing that Meg Thee Stallion is, you know, responsible because there were parts of her story that she chose to omit or lie about, right? But ultimately, she still said Tory Lanez shot her, right? That never was in question, right? And what do you think of the reaction of Tory Lanez's family and accusing Jay-Z and Roc Nation and Desiree Perez of all these conspiracies? And what do you think is going to happen to Kelsey? Do you think she is going to be brought up on perjury charges? What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post new content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.